Hi, everyone. I am your host, Allison K. Dagny. Welcome back to the Be a Better You podcast. Today, I have a guest with me who I am so excited to have this conversation with. Her name is Sheryn Senn. She is an author of the best-selling book, Lost and Found, and she's also a podcast host and a coach. And most exciting for me is she is one of my former clients. So I brought Sheryn on today because Sheryn is so wise. She has so much information to share, and she's been through a lot that I think many of you can relate to. So thank you for being here, Sheryn. I can't wait for this conversation. If you would just maybe start off by giving everybody a little bit of background on you and your story to kind of kick it off.
Sure. Yes. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here. I feel like most of our conversations should be podcast episodes. Not all, but most.
Yeah.
So I come from a, middle to upper class family, but unfortunately I was abused by my parents, physically, emotionally, all of that. And then that led me into two marriages, and the second one being basically 22-year relationship, 19-year marriage with someone who was emotionally, verbally, physically abusive. And when I say physically, I know it wasn't hitting and those types of things, but I want people to understand that physical is not just that. Physical is chasing you around the house, putting their finger into your, in your face, threatening you, um, making you fear for your life,
Yeah.
really is physical abuse too.
Blocking your pathways, holding you down, not giving you the autonomy over your own body, instilling fear, intimidation, all of that stuff for sure. So, well,
Right,
first of
right.
all, and we've talked about this. I'm so sorry that you have gone through all of that. Especially that happened to you at such a young age, right? Because that deeply programmed you, and then you end up repeating the same unconscious patterns in your future relationships with the people who you end up marrying. And that
Right.
creates a lot of problems. And, you know, it's really tough because, we are all being programmed. And you know that from like a very young age. And we have these beliefs that we carry. And then we end up in these marriages with abusers and people who are mistreating us, or we're being codependent or whatever, right? There's so many different layers to that. But what I want to know is you went through that as a child. You married. This is in your book. So if anybody's interested, they can read your book and learn the whole story. You married, had a couple of kids with your first husband, and then you ended up in another relationship after that. I don't want to give away the details of your story. So you ended up in another relationship after that. That's the one you were just talking about. That was the
Yes.
abusive relationship. So
Yes.
what was the timeline then of after that relationship and you ending up where you're at now? Like, how did you get from, because people are in such a dark place to where you're at now. I mean, you're a podcast host, you're an author, you're a coach, you're like, and I want to share these things with these listeners so that they understand, like, you don't have to be in that same place that you used to be. So how did you get from A to B?
Right, right. Well, I will say at that time when I was in the darkest place in my life, I didn't never saw a B. Like I was in the A, and I was completely like, I knew I wanted to leave that relationship and get out of that relationship, and that I had to, but I also thought that I wasn't going to necessarily make it to where I am now by any means. I was in such a dark place, and I really thought that by leaving the relationship, that would get me almost, I don't want to say instantly better, but there's that feeling of, hope where, and it does bring you obviously some relief because I'm no longer being, basically held hostage or threatened and all of those things. But I ended up almost being in a darker place when I first left, because I felt like I had so many struggles, because all of a sudden I was with this man for 22 years. I had a child with him also. So I had 3 children now that him and I basically, we lived in the home with them because they were 10 and 13 when him and I got married. And then we had a child together. So during that time, it was, I stayed a long time because I thought it was benefiting the kids.
Mhm.
But when I did finally, when I was, obviously the kids were grown up. My youngest was, I think, 18 or 19 when I finally left the relationship. And it was really, all these things start as soon as I left the relationship, like my life actually got worse in some ways where like little things started blowing up and going wrong, around my house, different things were breaking down and all of these things.
Mhm.
But how I got through it in the beginning was I kept saying to myself, you can handle this. You made it through 22 years of horrific circumstances. And yes, these things are happening, but each little step that I took, I would make sure that I applauded myself. And that got me at least to where I would get a little bit to where I was alive still, basically.
Yeah.
But as time went on and I found out that my ex was in another relationship that he had started previously, and he appeared like he was living a great life.
Mhm.
So I was constantly ruminating, thinking about, him and this other woman. And I wasn't still in love with him after everything he had done, obviously, but it was the fact that I came to the realization that another person that I had trusted, that I had loved at one point, I thought was abusing me. And
Right.
this pattern was continuing. And here I was now later in my life. And I realized that I had wasted my, or spent my entire life
Mhm.
with people abusing me.
Right.
And it was really frightening for that. But then I kept going, I kept trying to get through, but the ruminating thoughts were so horrific and I just could not stop them. And I actually got to the point where I became suicidal. And I had to, I was staying with a girlfriend for a weekend. I remember having to wake her up in the middle of the night because I was afraid I was going to, hurt myself and take a bottle of pills.
Yeah.
And I'm not that person. Like, never in a million years would I ever think that I would do that. I'd never previously been
Yeah.
suicidal. So it was really hard for me because I was seeing myself, I felt like I was sinking lower, but yet I was making progress. So it's very confusing during that time because you're just going back and forth and all of that.
Yeah.
But a couple of things. I think that's when I found you, which was wonderful because you taught me about I was able to reprogram working with you and reprogram my mind. And it really got me to get rid of the rumination,
Yeah.
which was life changing. It was absolutely life changing that. And then the other thing that I did that really helped me was in the beginning was like I said, I constantly cheered myself on. I mean, I was to the point where one time, I know I shared this with you previously, but I had done something, taken a drive in the middle of the night to get to I went to another country and was doing all this stuff all by myself. And I was really in the car screaming, Sheryn, you did it. I'm so proud of you. And like, like cheering myself on. Like if people saw me driving by me, I didn't care. I was like, so pumped for myself. And so, I surrounded myself with people that really believed in me and helped me get through.
Yeah.
And obviously you were one of those people. And, I really credit you and, the people that are closest to me for really saving my life. But the other thing that I think is really important for people to understand too is that you can't wait until you feel better to start making any progress or taking any steps. So even though I did not want to get out of bed in the morning, even though at night I was on the hotline calling the domestic abuse hotline because I was afraid I was going to hurt myself, I still had to try and do so. I mean, during that time, I started writing my book. So I was like writing my book in the mornings, and then at night I was like wanting to end my life. It was just this constant
Usually.
merry-go-round and just back and forth. But it was like I knew that by writing the book and by doing any steps that you take to move forward, working with you, like I knew that I had to keep doing that. And eventually that overtook the negative.
Right. Wow.
Yeah. So you can't wait until you feel better, because you're not going to feel better unless you take steps.
Right. The action is
Yeah.
so important. And there's so many things that I want to address about what you're saying. Like you talked about the confusion, which I totally can understand because, and I actually just talked about this on another podcast episode about how you think that as soon as you get out of the relationship, the abusive relationship, that things are going to get better. And like you said, in some ways it does, right? Because you're not constantly under fire in that way. But all this leftover stuff still is there, right? It's not, that doesn't go away, right? That's the whole from my book, When Tears Leave Scars, right? Those scars are still there. Those
Right.
wounds are still there. And if you don't address them, they're just going to keep rearing their ugly heads. So I totally get that because you're like, you at some point you think you're like a crazy person or you're bipolar because you're like, why am I feeling so great one day and I'm over here writing a book and the next day I'm like curled up in a ball crying my eyes out, right?
Right. Exactly.
Happening.
Yeah.
So that is the aftermath of being in an emotionally abusive or any sort of abusive or narcissistically abusive relationship. The other thing that I wanted to address is that I love how you celebrate yourself and celebrate the wins, even when you were in a dark place, right? Even when you were like, man, I fixed this. Man, I figured that out. I did this by myself, right? I can't say enough about doing that because what is actually happening here is you're reprogramming your mind even when you didn't know it. Like you're actually showing your brain that you are capable, that you are successful, that you can do it, right? That actually gives you the reinforcement that you need for self-love, for empowerment, for things like that. So a lot of times people don't realize that the impact that celebrating yourself actually has. And it truly is really, really valuable. And then the other thing was this is the support, right? Having a coach or having family members and friends and people around you is so important, right? Because we cannot heal in a tunnel. Like we cannot heal in a silo. This is not, we're not doing this by ourselves, right? And sometimes people who are highly independent because they've had to be, because they've been in emotionally abusive relationships, you and me both know that, what that's like, right? That now all of a sudden you're in a situation where I don't need anybody to do it. I can do it all by myself. I can figure it all out, right? We need everybody else around us to help us and support us. So I love that you brought that up because yes, there has to be gratitude for those people because there are helpers everywhere, whether we realize it or not, right? Whether there's somebody you actively go to for help, like a therapist or a coach, or just a friend that lets you stay in her house because you're struggling, right? We need people like that in our lives.
Right.
Oh, and then the last thing was that you can't wait till you feel better to start. And that is so valuable. Like if there's only one thing people take away from this, I hope it's that, seriously, because if we don't change something, nothing changes, right? If we're doing the same things over and over again, and we're not changing something or taking a different action or doing something that we've never done before, nothing else will change. So what do you think? Like you talked about rumination, and I think that was the main reason like that you had come to me because you couldn't get the thoughts to turn off. You couldn't get those things to stop and all these like just driving you absolute batty, right? I know what it
Right.
feels like. So
Yes.
why did you think that, I guess when you first came to me and we started talking, like what made you be like, yes, I want to do this and I want to work with Allison?
Oh my goodness. Well, let me count the ways because you're so wonderful. Uh, well, I found you on social media,
Mhm.
and, because of course my ex was narcissistic, and I was, learning everything I could and had been for years about narcissism. So once I found you, I just absolutely loved everything that you were putting out. It was to me, everything you were putting out was very relatable. And then when I met with you for the first time, I just felt completely comfortable. And I think that's one of the most important things when you're looking for someone, because I knew that the only way that I could get better and that I could fix things was I had to be 100% honest with you. There can't be just like if, you just, people that go to therapy or whatever, and that's a completely different thing. But like if you go in and you paint this picture, I mean, you can't paint a picture that's not anything but the truth, or you're not going to get better, and things are not going to change for you, and they can't truly help you. And so I felt, especially because you had been through it also, that was a big thing for me too, because we had a lot of similarities in our stories, and I felt like you, number one, obviously completely understood, and not just understood, but you could feel it in your bones, in your soul, everything, all of my pain, because you had already experienced that same pain. And also the again, the comfortability. Like I just felt like, and you had, and I could tell you anything, and also you made me feel like I wasn't crazy for feeling that way, that it was completely normal, and that you could help me because you were showing me how your life was different, and you had been in the same place that I had been, obviously, in your own way. But so those were the things that were really, really huge for me.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I'm glad that that was, something that gave you comfort and security in that, feeling, because I know there are a lot of people out there who are coaches and do support people and have training. But like, if you've never been through this, if you have never been in the depths of hell with somebody like this, you do not get it. Like, you truly cannot understand. People like you and me, we get it. Like, I totally get it. Like, because I remember like getting out of my relationship and I had been fresh out of it, like weeks out of it. And this is so funny, but I remember going to get my oil changed or tires rotated or something. And there was a man, he was probably like 65 or something, like just a customer standing there waiting. And I just like unloaded on him and told him all about my abuse and all about the things that happened. And like his eyes was like, he just like looked at like, and even friends and stuff, not even just strangers, but like friends look at you like you have three heads sometimes. They don't understand. So there is such a value in being in a community of people or with other people who truly understand and get it versus just say, oh, I'm so sorry that you went through that, right? Versus like, I get it. Like, I totally understand what this feels like. So I'm glad that you shared.
Yeah. That's so funny too, because that happened to me with my sewer backed up, like right after, a couple weeks after I left the relationship. And when the plumber came, and he was like, well, it might be, it could be anywhere from $600 to $7,000. And I literally just started, I was like, I just left a 22, like, I just started crying. And I was just like, I just left a 22-year abusive relationship, and I have children, and I don't have any money, and I can't, so please, 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 it has to be $600.
Yeah. And
Look
they're
at
like,
me, like,
what?
yeah. And I was just like, and the thing is that's so great is, and I really I would totally recommend to people, like, don't care, like, if you do that, because like it just, it doesn't matter what they think. It doesn't matter. Like, it just was such a release to me that it actually made me feel good. Like, I was just like, okay, like, I mean, he probably thought I was nuts, but I didn't care at that point, because,
At some point, we just need to verbalize
right.
what happened to us, because for so many years we probably hid it or snuffed it, shoved it under the rug, like didn't address it. So like just even verbalizing it sometimes.
Yeah,
But it's even better to verbalize it to somebody who knows and understands.
absolutely. 100%. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, well, a question I have for you is, because I know you had childhood trauma, and a lot of people who are listening also have childhood trauma. Like, who doesn't, right? And I know they vary from different levels and different degrees and things like that. But was there anything that you felt like, because of your childhood trauma, that you carried into the next relationship that was like patterned? Like something like, this happened to me. This is what I was doing in my relationships too, because of the trauma from being a child, or
Yes.
abused as a child.
Yes. So both of my parents were abusive, verbally and physically, and emotionally. But because of my father being, this, a man, and being like the the head of the family, and just having such a powerful, being 6 foot and just having a powerful presence. Um, and he was also extremely charismatic.
Mm.
So everyone, I mean, everywhere we went, he knew people. everywhere we went, people were like, oh my gosh. If I gave my last name somewhere, people were like, oh my gosh, are you related to so and so? Because, and it was my dad. And I'd be like, yep, that's my dad. And they're like, oh, we think he's the greatest ever. And like, he's the funniest and all this stuff. And so I found myself, repeating that pattern in my relationships where I ended up marrying very charismatic men who everyone in the public eye loved and thought was just an exceptional human being, like above and beyond your average person. To some point to where like my first husband was really like a local celebrity. And so it was very much where I followed that pattern of where I knew what was going on in the home. And yet everyone outside the house thought that person was amazing. And I fell into that trap of marrying men like that, like my father. And I think because to me, I thought, okay, that's that's what it is. That's how it happens. This is how it happens. This is how it is with everyone. Everyone that's out there being nice at home, there's abuse. Like people are hiding it, like
It's just,
that's what I
that
felt
was
like.
the norm for you. That was,
Right. That was the norm. Like I thought, oh, like this, nobody talks about it outside the house. There's no one saying, they're being abused at home. And, so that's what I kind of pictured that's what was happening in everybody's home.
yeah,
And so I kind of went along with it. That's what I think kept me going along with it for a long time.
yeah.
And then I think the reason that I was attracted to the charisma in that is because they were also um, feeding me in ways that I needed because my parents had told me, you're not worthy, you're no good. I was put down for, I was the black sheep and for standing up for myself and using my voice. And so I married men where I couldn't use my voice. They had to be the front and I was in the background. And that was what I knew. So it was comfortable for me
Yeah.
in a weird, sad way. That's what you do,
It is. I mean, what we
Yeah.
do, and it's just the way of humanity, and is we tend to err towards comfort, right? What are we, and even though it might be okay, it might be uncomfortable, not truly, maybe comfort isn't the right word, maybe familiar
Right.
is a better word.
Yes. I like that better. Yes, you're
I'm
right.
familiar with chaos, so I always find chaos in my relationships.
Yes.
I'm familiar with, you know, thinking that men who are charismatic and who treat their families and their children with abuse, that's what it is, or that's what I can expect when I grow up, right? So you become, in some ways it's not comforting, right? Not necessarily, but it is familiar, and what we're used to, we're going to gravitate towards, right? Until we start to change that and say, wait a second, what parts of me, what wounds are inside of me that need to be addressed and shifted? Because I can guarantee you now, after all the work that you've done on yourself and all the healing that you've done, that when you see a very, very charismatic, boisterous kind of man, you're probably going to go, ooh, I don't know. Like, I'm going to have to test the waters on this, because now it's a totally different perspective. Now it isn't that familiar. Now it's like danger. It's like
Yes.
flashing lights now. Like, wait,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, I spent many, many years in my last relationship, you know, being, with the familiarity and not, it took a long time for me to catch on. I guess is what I'm trying to say.
So, I know you don't, like, you're not beating yourself up for that anymore, because
Right.
we've been through that. I've been through that too. It's like, wait,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
it's just the way our brains are wired and how we
Exactly.
protect
Yeah.
ourselves and all of that. So, okay, well, that was really insightful. But I think a lot of people need to hear that, because when you figure out those patterns and you look at the things that happen to you, because like even me, like I would say I had a picture perfect childhood. My parents lived a middle class life. My both parents worked. I had a great upbringing. My parents divorced when I was 12, but it wasn't even like my parents hated each other or they were fighting all the time. It was just like, oh, we're just not compatible anymore. Like it was not even like by any stretch. I don't think anybody would be like, oh, you had a really bad childhood. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
well,
Right.
but there were things that impacted me and affected me anyway within the dynamics of my family that I carried into my adult relationships. That now I can look back and connect the dots and be like, oh, now I know why I tried so hard in all my relationships to try to get people to love me. I can connect it back to my childhood. Not that my parents didn't love me, but it was because my mom worked all the time. She was constantly at work, and she was at work when I was at home, like in the evenings and the weekends. So I didn't really get to see my mom. So the only time she came
Right.
around was when I got blue ribbons, when I got art awards, when I got recognitions at school, all of my cheerleading competitions, like all that stuff. She would be there for. Always. She never missed. And some people would be like, well, why is that traumatizing to you? Your mom showed up to everything. Because it wasn't traumatizing to me, but it was a program that I lived out saying, oh no, I need to do more, better. I can't just be me to get recognized. I have to do all these extra things to be seen, to be heard, to be loved. And so then I was taking that into my relationships with men, trying so
Right.
hard, and it led me right into the arms of a narcissist. So there I
Yeah.
am. So it's important, right, to take inventory of your experience, as painful as that might be, right? To go back, like, you have to go back and look at your childhood. We don't have to say, like, why am I this way? Why am I that way? But it does help to be able to make the connection between, oh, okay, so I'm lacking self-worth because of how my parents treated me. And now I need to rebuild that so I don't end up in a similar situation again from a previous relationship abuse and things like that. I don't want to keep repeating these same patterns. If you don't address the thing that is the core wound or the traumas that happened to you in your programming era of the time you were 0 to 8 years old, you're going to keep repeating it until you get it right.
Right.
Who wants to do that till you're
Right.
100 years old and you're dead? Like,
Right.
no.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
It's frustrating to me. Like, I don't want to repeat Earth School again. Like, I don't want to keep coming back to this planet and like keep repeating all these. I don't want to repeat it in my daily life. I don't want to repeat it if I have to come back in another life or something. I don't want to. Like, I want to get it right now. And that's what I want to help other people do it too. Like, I want to help other
Right. 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 Yeah.
get it right, fix this shit, and move on. Excuse my language. Okay.
Yes.
Sorry, I get
Perfect.
really passionate about that.
Yeah.
Okay. So tell me a little bit about your book. Why did you decide to write your book?
So I've always thought that I was a good writer. I've always written a lot of different things. I'm always writing. And throughout the relationship, I was taking notes in my phone. Once I got to the point where I realized where it was, I really realized what was going on. And this was years before I left. I was writing down all of the incidents and everything, documenting them in the notes app on my phone. And it kind of helped me because when you are with someone that's narcissistic, there's highs and lows constantly, right? You're crazy, I hate you, you're no good. And then the next day they're like, they want something from you. So they're like, oh my gosh, I love you so much. You look beautiful today. Like literally. And then it got to where it was literally where like, I mean, my husband could say, oh my gosh, you look so beautiful. And then ask me for something. And if I didn't do it, he would be like, oh my gosh, you're crazy. You're such a loser. Like within a 5 minute span of time, I went from being beautiful to being a crazy loser
Mhm.
just because he didn't get his way.
Yeah.
So I was documenting all of this and it was important for me to do that. I think to survive. And so once I left the relationship and these things were happening where, I was suicidal and all these things were falling apart at my house and all of this craziness was continuing, it just was kind of like, I thought this is going to be a way for me, a cathartic way, because writing is my thing, to document all of this and actually go back and recognize my patterns too, which that was really helpful because I started, my childhood abuse is in the book too. So I started there. And so it goes through and that was really helpful for me. But mainly the reason I wanted to do it was because, like you, I'm extremely passionate about helping people to get out of these situations, because I think that there's too many people that are not leaving and too many people that are living in these lives. And even if they're not abusive to the point where ours were, I think that there's a lot of unhappy people that are in situations that they're not leaving because they're scared of leaving and of change and of if they can do it.
Yep.
And I wanted to be able to show people that you can do it, because as I was building and building and I could feel myself getting stronger, and I was having more good days than bad. And so and actually I will say also the fact that you wrote your book was very inspirational to me. So it was something that I had always wanted to do. And then I just felt like it was going to be a saving grace for me, and then hopefully for many other people.
Yeah, I love that. And I'm glad you did, because here's the thing, our stories have to be shared. And what somebody might not relate to in my book could relate to in your book, right? Because I don't have a story of the childhood abuse, right? But somebody else might be like, oh my gosh, yes, like I experienced this too. And now I'm putting all this stuff together. And now it's like light bulbs are coming on inside their head, you know?
Right, right.
Oh, it's important. I really think it's important for people to share their stories in any way that you want to share it, when you feel comfortable, however you do that. Like, I don't even use my real name. I use a pseudonym for my book, because I didn't want, my kids are still not all adults, and I didn't want my ex to potentially try to sue me or something like that while they were still, not 18. I just felt like that would be too traumatic for them to have to watch their parents go through, fighting or dragging back and forth to court, or like, who knows, right? So
Right.
um, it has to be like, if you share your story, do it in the right way, do it how you feel comfortable. If you want to get on stages and do TED Talks, if you want to, have a podcast and share your story, if you want to write a book, if you want to do a blog, like whatever, like, but stories help people. And I love that you wrote your book and you finished it and you published it, and it's a best-selling book now on Amazon. And then also you have a podcast, which I love. So I'm going to link your book. I'm going to link your podcast in the show notes too, for anybody who wants to go check it out. I am a guest on Sheryn's podcast, so you can listen
Yes.
again if you want to. But another, and you're also a coach and support women and help people. So I have a question for you. You went through what you went through. You had this whole timeline. You got out of your abusive situation. You had the dark night of the soul. You try to do your healing. You're writing a book. You're doing all these things. You find me. You're reprogramming your mind. You're getting these rumination things to stop. You're starting to feel different. Tell me what it feels like, because I think sometimes people don't really understand, and I know a lot of people verbalize it differently. So when you release a belief that has been like deeply embedded, or something that has been bothering you for a really long time, and you finally release it, how do you describe it?
It's, to me, it has been it's the most freeing, uh, life-changing feeling in my lifetime. It's almost like it puts a piece of my soul back in place,
Oh my gosh.
I would say.
That is really beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah,
Are we-
it's true. I mean, it's literally like I felt like my soul had been broken, stomped on, torn apart, and little by little, by being able to make these changes and release these beliefs and change my conditioning and thought process, like rebuilt my soul and put it back together to where for the first time in my life, I'm actually who I was meant to be. And, it's still obviously
Yeah.
becoming every day, we're all becoming, but it's literally like the first time in my life where I felt, yeah. And the subtitle to my book is Replacing the Girl Who Others Built with the Woman I Was Born to Be. And to me, that is just explains it, so well. Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing
Yeah.
that. Um, because I hear people say a lot of different things, like, and it's unique to everyone, right? And how they feel. But, it's sort of hard to describe, like, but you really did put it in such an eloquent way. And I love that. There was something else I was going to ask you when you were saying that. Oh, okay, I know what I was going to ask you. So you go through that with me. You start, having that piece of your soul put back into place, as you said. Where are you now? Right? Because you're in this, uh, I'll call it the swamp. I've called it the swamp before, deep, dark place, going through the motions, doing all the things, starting to get your healing going, kicking off all the action, like you said, like you doing the things. What's happening now?
Oh my goodness. Okay. So I was going through all of that work and all the time that I spent with you, and just little by little, just, rebuilding my soul, like I said, getting the pieces back together. And now I decide, and I just decided that this was it makes you feel so incredible that you feel like you can do anything. And I I did, and I decided to move over 800 miles away, all by myself, not knowing anyone where I moved to, and just completely building a whole new life for myself. And now, like you said, I have a podcast. My book was a best-selling book on Amazon. I found a town that is just every day I feel like I'm living in a movie, like a happy, great, inspiring movie. And I know I've shared this with you before, but when I walk every day, I'm a huge walker, and sometimes I'm dancing down the street, skipping, and some people would be like, okay, I'm sure people see me, they're like, okay, that woman's like crazy, right? But the thing is that that's how I feel now,
Yeah.
all the time, really. And so it's like, there's not even, it's hard to put into words other than to say that that's like, if you see me dancing down the street when I'm going walking, or dancing to the music, I'm singing out loud sometimes, even though I have my earbuds in, and no one else can hear the music but me. And it's just um so free. I just feel so free, and like anything's possible. And I'm so proud of myself, which is something that really helps with your healing, like I said, celebrating. And I guess what I'm trying to say is that people might look at me and be like, oh, or hear me saying this and think like, okay, yeah, like, she's crazy, I'm not going to go dancing down the street. But it's really how I feel. Like, if you are able to change your belief system and realize how things can be, that's how you're going to feel, and you're going to be doing it too. So
Yeah.
you can dance down the street with me, because it's like, I want everyone to feel that way, and I want everyone to be doing that, because I feel like there's so many people that are living day to day, like just in this grind, and like living the same day over and over again. And it's like, of course, I still have problems, things come up. I mean, I just had some big challenges with my car and things, but it's like, you know, that's life. But it's like, now I handle them in a completely different way, and that is all also to the reprogramming. And so it's just it's life changing beyond.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've seen it and I've seen the progression, right? I've heard you, um, like from our very first time we ever met to like, you're just like day and night different, like totally different person, in such a wonderful way, just have just blossomed and grown. And the thing that I love the most about you is that you never stop trying to learn, and you continue to keep at it. Like, it's like, okay, well, this is a problem for me. How am I gonna fix it? Okay, this is gonna, okay, what do I need to do? Okay, blah, blah, blah. Like, I love that, right? And like, you're somebody who will put in the work. Like, if I say, okay, here's your homework, this is what you have to do this week, you'll be like, all right, I'm on it. And you would do it, right? And that is a testament to you and to your inner strength and resolve to be able to do these things. And I think that is, you know, also, just so people know, isn't just a personality trait, it's also about reprogramming the things inside of you that make you believe that you can't do it, right? So if Sheryn had a belief system that she wasn't capable of putting in the work and doing all these things, she wouldn't do it, right? But when you reprogram those things, then you can say, oh, wait, actually, I am capable of doing this. And I do have proof and evidence that show me that I'm strong and I'm capable and I can persevere, right? So yes, part of it is just who you are, just generally, but anybody can achieve these things if we start in our mind, if we start at a subconscious level and start to change these things. Because sometimes I think people are like, oh yeah, but that's her. Oh yeah, look at how awesome she is, and she's just highly motivated, and I just don't have that kind of inner drive in me, and blah blah blah, right? And part of that might be true, but ultimately, right, when you said you feel you can do anything, it's because you released all that garbage and got all that stuff out of the way. That's
Yeah.
really truly why you feel you can do anything. So I'm so proud of you, and I'm so excited to see what happens for your future, and that you get to live in this lovely town. And like, oh, you also do public speaking now too.
Oh,
So
yeah.
so
Yeah.
I've got an author here, I've got a podcaster, I've got a public speaker, like this woman who is like literally was in a horrible place. So people who are listening, right? If you're in that place right now, let the light be shined on people like Sheryn, people like me, people like my other clients who are achieving the things that they want and building the life of their dreams because they did the inner healing work. So
Right.
absolutely proud of you.
Thank
Um,
you. And I do want to say that I was just thinking when we first got on, oh, like how many years has it been? Because I feel like I feel like I've known you forever. And and then I was like, oh wait, it's been 1 year. It's been 1 year since I left my relationship and was wanting to end my life, to
today.
writing a book, moving, over 800 miles away from everything, starting a whole new chapter, starting my all the stuff, all the things. It's been 1 year.
Wow.
So I just want people to know it's not like this is going to take you,
Uh-huh.
once you start reconditioning and reprogramming and start doing the work, it just starts happening and
Yep.
it's quick.
Yeah.
You
I mean, the thing is like that a lot of people don't understand is like everything is already coming to you. All the wonderful things, right? God, the universe, whatever you want to say, wants you to have these things, wants you to have the success, wants you to have the money, wants you to have the love, the relationships, the abundance of everything that you desire. But if you have a brick wall up and all that stuff is coming to you, what's going to happen? It's going to bounce off the brick wall, right? What we're trying to do is take the wall down, right? The wall is all of your limiting beliefs, all of your subconscious programs that are saying, I don't deserve it. I'm not good enough. I'll never make it. I can't be that. I can't be like her. I can't do those things. That's the wall. And you took your wall down. I've taken my wall down. And I'm not saying we don't have any blocks ever, right? It's the subconscious mind is running 95% of the show. There's a lot of stuff in there. But like just to go from where you were to where you are now in a year is absolutely phenomenal. It truly is. Like, and again, yes, this work is so powerful. It is that powerful, but it's not powerful by itself. You had to do it. You had to be committed. You had to say, wait a minute, I actually deserve to be able to live the life I want to live and heal and take the action, like you said. So it's just not like a magic button and you're going to press the button, right? You have to put
right,
practice. You have to, get into the hard stuff, right?
right. Absolutely. Yes.
Okay, so I want to know, how do you, are there any examples that you can give of how you've applied what you've learned in my coaching program, the things that I teach or things that I've taught you, things that you know about the subconscious mind and, reprogramming and all that to your daily life, even today? Like, how does that look for you? Things that
Well, I'm now obsessed with the brain. So there's that. I learned so much about the brain and how it works. I didn't know. I mean, I've never been into science. I'm not a science person. I'm a creative. And but now I think that people really need to understand, like what you said, that 95% of your subconscious
Mhm.
is running the show, and that it is all about that. Like it's all, you can change it, and how important it is to change it. And so now basically I'm constantly building upon what I worked on. It's a daily practice really because like you said, things, and like I said, things still come up,
Yeah.
but it's just about now looking at the evidence and knowing that, okay, look at where I was, look at what I've already overcome. This is something else that I can overcome too.
Yeah.
Because
Well,
now I have the skill set to do
yeah.
it.
And you had like, share like one of the recent things that you shared with me before we started here, that like these things that are happening to you and like how you mentally process those things. Like you said, mentioned about your car, like things like just
Yeah.
pick one of the
Yeah.
things and how you.
Okay. Well, just this week alone, let's start there. So I just had my car fixed for $2,900 and they made a mistake. They had an accident and did something else, bumped something, ruined it. So now my car needs an entirely new engine. In addition to that, I dropped my new smartphone and cracked the screen and had to get that repaired. And what was the other thing?
Air conditioning.
Oh yeah, and my AC stopped working and I now live in the South where it's like 96, 98 degrees and humid. So that all was just this week. And wait, it's only Thursday, but but here I am laughing and on your podcast because I was able to deal with it. I was able to feel confident enough to handle it in a way where it's all been taken care of in my favor.
Mhm.
And it didn't, I mean, literally, I was just telling a friend the other day, if this had been, any other time of my life where this happened, I'd be curled up in a corner, crying, rocking myself back and forth, thinking that there is no way I was going to get through this.
Yeah.
Of course, this happens to me. All bad things happen to me. All those things I would be saying to myself, like, yeah, Sheryn, of course, this happens to you. Good things don't happen to you,
Mhm.
and instead, obviously it can be upsetting and it's disappointing. And it's also, you know, I've had to Uber and make a lot of adjustments that I wouldn't have normally had to do if this hadn't happened. But it's, it's just, I'm fine. I'm great, and it's like, it's all being taken care of. And I was able to handle it in a way that I'm really, really proud of myself and also celebrating myself for. And that's another thing that you taught me is about, yes, before I met you, I was celebrating like those little steps, like I said, cheering up myself on. But that was like for, I would say, more major things. And now I feel like you taught me, like I celebrate everything now. Anything, that, I mean, everything's worth celebrating that comes in your favor. And I feel like that really helps you also see it in a better way.
Yeah, it definitely changes your perspective. And that's
Yeah.
what this is all about, right? And so, like, when something like a major car issue happens on the drive, on a like however many
Oh
hours
yeah.
we're
12
driving,
hour drive.
it happened in the middle
Yeah.
of a place you didn't even know where you were, right?
Right.
You could have gotten into a complete, an utter panic attack or anxiety or freeze response or anything. But I think because you're equipped with this now, then what happens is your brain how do I say this? Like switches to a different automatic, right? Where the other automatic was curl up in a ball, tell myself all these horrible things. This is typical, blah, 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 right? That was the old automatic, right? The new automatic is something different. It's like, wait, I can handle this. I can take care of this. This is a huge inconvenience for me and I don't know where I am, but I'm capable. I know what I'm doing. I'm going to make some calls. I'm going to figure this out. And then it turned out in your favor, right? Ultimately, right?
Yes.
So I think the difference is like when we talk about like how this actually changes you long term, if this isn't something that you do and then you're done, right? It
Right.
changes your brain indefinitely, right? And the more you practice it and the more you do it, the deeper those grooves become as that new automatic where you can handle this stuff and you're not going to have an emotional breakdown or like something when something bad happens or life is what life is and we're always going to have things that come up. So how are we perceiving those things and how are we managing them? So I love that. And thank you for sharing that because I love those stories because it's a testament to what this is and how it actually works for you and how it can work for anybody if they're willing to put in the commitment to it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, so what advice would you give to people who were in a similar situation as you, right? Before starting their healing journeys. People who are like in the kind of earliest stages of their healing and they're like, oh, like I don't know what to do, I don't know where to go. Like just generally, what would you say?
Well, I would definitely say to know that it can get better. It's going to get better. Especially think about celebrate that you took you accepted or you recognized. I'm sorry, I'm just having trouble finding the word. You recognized the situation you were in. You're getting yourself out of it, and now you can you can start to live a life that I'm living now. And I would definitely recommend working with Allison. And I'm not just saying that. I mean, I tell everybody that, and I firmly believe it, because if it wasn't for Allison, I do believe that I would still be ruminating absolutely 100% without your work and your help. You got me through the hardest part of my life. I mean, really. And also, like I said, definitely start taking steps even when you don't feel like it. You absolutely get yourself out of bed. Absolutely, you can cry and feel bad for a little bit, but then you've got to say, okay, now what am I going to do? And you've got to do something, and you've got to start to take a step even if you don't feel like it. And you'll be able to build on that.
Yeah. That
Yeah.
action, I think, really does help. Like it's sort of like I could use an analogy of like you haven't worked out in a while and you know you need to get up out of bed and you know you need to put your tennis shoes on and go outside and take a walk or something, right? And it's like you just keep laying there and thinking about it. Like, oh, I should do it. I should do it. I don't want to. What are all the reasons I don't want to? I don't have any clean workout clothes, or nothing fits me, or the rain is coming soon. Like you could make every excuse in the world, right? But until you actually get yourself up and do what you told yourself you wanted to do, can you actually feel it, right? Because
Right.
you can't feel it and feel the results of it by laying in bed, right? So even just a tiny little action of getting up, putting your shoes on, throwing a coat on, and take a quick walk to the mailbox and come back like, oh my God, yes, I did it. Like I will tell you, like I had to take off a week because I said this on a couple of my other episodes too, because I'm struggling with some high cholesterol and some heart. I am not like, I mean, I'm 5 foot tall. I weigh about 110 pounds. I didn't ever think I would have issues with cholesterol or anything. I feel like I eat pretty well, but who knows? Maybe it's genetic. I don't know. But I had to take off for like a week. And as when I did that, I was starting to feel like, oh, like, I just like a desire, like I want to go out, take a walk, like because you walk regularly. I want to go take a walk. And I knew that I couldn't do it because it wasn't the right thing for my heart. And I needed to like do some other stuff with my food and water intake and things like that and rest before I started to walk again. So the first day I decided to do it after a week, I went to the mailbox, and my mailbox is down the street. It's literally like a 2-minute walk. So I walked to the mailbox and I walked back, and I was so excited. I was so happy for myself because it was like, you know what? I did want to do it, but I still celebrated because I would normally do like a 30-45 minute walk. It was 4 minutes or 6 minutes or something. And I still told myself, that's great. Like, good for you. It's good. Like, why aren't we treating ourselves the way that we would want other people to treat us? Right. So, all the times that you celebrate it yourself, think about how that little girl version of you would have wanted people to treat her. Right. And that's what you're giving to
Yes.
yourself. And what a gift is that, right? So
Yes.
I think
Yes.
if we can do that for ourselves more and celebrate more about the things that, even the little things, then
Right.
it starts to change something inside of us. The perspective starts to change, and we start to feel differently about who we are at the core from all that garbage programming that other people put onto us from the time we were born and even beyond. So, well, thank you for that, because I definitely think you have such an inspiring story, and that people will be able to recognize themselves in you and see like, oh my gosh, like if she's doing it, I can do it too, right? Look at all the
Yes.
trauma
Thank
and stuff
you.
that she went through, and look how she picked herself up, and look what she did, and look where she's headed. And now you're going to create that ripple effect and help even more people in the future. So I love that. Okay, so I don't know, you know this, on July 1st, which was yesterday, I launched my membership program called Radiate and Rise Together, which is a community group where women can come in and get support and healing and lessons and tools and tips and like weekly homeworks and content, all kinds of stuff in there. Plus, once a month, I'm offering live coaching inside the group. Also, this is not in Facebook. This is a completely separate place. And you can be incognito. You can change your name just like I do for safety purposes if you don't feel comfortable sharing or whatever. So, what do you think that being a part of a group membership like this could be as far as a support for people who are looking for something similar to what you experienced in one-on-one coaching?
So I think it's really important that, I did actually join something like a support groups
Mhm.
when I first started. And I think anytime you have other people that are going through the similar situation and you hear that, it's the most, it makes you feel that you're not alone, makes you feel that you're not crazy, like they want you to feel, and your abuser. And so I think it is a huge, huge benefit for someone, especially when you're going through something like this. And then, of course, to have the monthly coaching with you is priceless. So I think that's amazing too.
Yeah.
And the fact that you can, the support groups that I were in were, you can be anonymous, because I know a lot of people do worry about that.
Mhm.
I dealt with, I did not go anonymous. I did change the names in my book and I used my maiden name,
Mhm.
but I was stalked
Mhm.
after
Mhm.
I left the relationship, and actually still being stalked. And so I think it's, definitely something that's really the best of all worlds, to be able to be in there and get the support from other people and not have to worry about, these people don't know you.
Right.
You can be anonymous, and that way you can feel totally comfortable being 100% honest about your story and everything.
Say whatever you want.
Yeah.
And even in like what, my plan is on those coaching calls is that you don't even have to turn your camera on. Like you don't even have to come on. Like I'll still coach. I'll always have content and I've always have things to talk about. Whether people want to come on and get coached or not, that's up to them. But I just really I felt like this was a necessary thing for me to do, especially for people kind of early in their healing journeys, because like you said, even that one-on-one coaching is priceless. It's $22 a month. Like you can get in for $22 a month. You can have access to the community. You have access to all the tools, all the information, all the um, like personal accountability activities that we're going to be doing to just kind of keep your momentum moving. And then like the coaching calls and things like that. So now that's the founding member price. So that's only in July that I'm offering that. And then in August, it goes up to $33 a month. So, I mean, still like not even much more, but I feel like too, like sometimes, especially when there's been financial abuse and stuff, and in most cases, 98%, there is financial abuse in abusive relationships. We often don't even feel like that we're worth spending $22 on ourselves. So, especially like in a one-on-one container, as it's a bigger investment. But I thought, well, wait a minute, like if I could like start off my healing journey, like if I had a support group like this when I was first starting, I think it would have been so helpful for me to even know where to begin. Because like you said, like you got to start somewhere. You got to, take the action and stuff like that. So maybe this would be an easy way for people to be able to do that, right? Like, because otherwise
Yeah.
it's like, where do I start and where do I begin? So you can start here if you want to.
Right. Yeah. You can't find anything else for $22 where you're getting an expert like yourself on everything, all in addition to you've experienced it yourself, in addition to being surrounded by other people who are going through the same thing. Those are like the three things that are going to help you move forward. And yeah, it's going to be amazing.
I'm
And
really,
it's so needed. Yeah.
thank you. So Thank you so much for being here.
Welcome.
And sharing your personal story and your vulnerability and your inspiration, because that is so valuable and so helpful for people to be able to know that there is a light at the end of the tunnel and you don't have to be a victim of your circumstances, and you can move beyond that and find real, true healing and real, true results and live the life of your dreams, which is where you are right now. So, is there anything else that you would want to share or that you want anybody else to know?
Oh my goodness. I mean, just that I think that if you are still in a situation to, you know, to know that it's possible that it will get better, you can get out, and please do, because no one deserves to be treated that way. And there's so much on the other side for you. And then also, if you have just left, definitely just applaud yourself, because that step alone is, life changing. And then sign up for your Radiate and Rise membership, and you will be on your way to your
Yeah.
dream life.
Go get Sharon's book, listen to Sharon's
Yeah,
podcast. We have all the free stuff out here
all the
too.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, well, thank you so much. Oh, one other question. I always ask every guest. I've never forgotten to ask this question. What is something that not a lot of people know about you? This could be people like close to you know about you, but like a lot of other people don't know about you.
Hmm. I guess I would say, what would I say that people don't know about me? I think that I used to be a flight attendant.
Oh, I didn't even know
People
that
find
about
that fascinating. So I guess
didn't know that
you
about you.
didn't know that? Yeah, I used to be a flight attendant. Yes, it was a
Oh,
great experience.
really? So you got to
Yeah,
travel place, huh?
yeah, yeah. I've been everywhere. You know.
I could totally see you doing that. I could.
Yeah, it was fun. It was definitely fun. Yeah, we would fly places for lunch just to,
Oh my
because
God.
we could fly for free. So on our days off.
Yeah, that's amazing. All
Yeah.
right. Thank you again for being here and sharing your story. And please reach out to Sheryn if you have any questions. Where can people find you? Are you on Instagram, Facebook?
Yeah, on both at Sheryn Senn, and that's SherynSenn. And you can find my book Lost and Found on Amazon. And my podcast is the Power for Good podcast.
Perfect. And I'll link all of this in the show notes for anybody who wants to, as well as the link to join Radiate and Rise if you're interested. And you can always reach out to me. You can reach out to Sheryn. We are here to support you all. And I hope you all have a wonderful day. And I'll talk to you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.